Hello everybody, this is Danny from Deepsouth Homestead on Porch Time today. Yes guys, Porch Time today is being filmed a little bit earlier than what I normally would do it. We've got a lot of weather supposed to be moving in, so I wanted to be able to do this before all the weather got in. And plus today's a nice day. It's 81 degrees here on the porch at the cabin. And a little bit of a breeze blowing. Humidity's kind of high, but it's a nice day. We've been getting a lot done here lately. We've got most all of our garden planted except for sweet potatoes. We don't have all of them planted, but the rest of everything else has pretty much been taken care of. Guys, today, and I hope the wind is not too bad because you can see the ferns in the background. The wind is blowing. I pray that it's not messing up the video too bad, and if it is, I apologize. I wanted to just continue talking, guys. We as a nation right now are in uncharted territory for our age. Now, yes, it's true that there's a few people left around that went through the Great Depression. There's probably maybe a few left around that even went through the flu that hit in, 1918, the pandemic that happened then. But I mean, they would be very far and few between on that. But it's possible that there could still be some around that went through that. But guys, we're not set up for this. Not in the world we live in today. And I am so concerned that we're going to fall apart as a country because we're not used to this. I go to town occasionally now. I try not to mingle with people, and I wear gloves when I go and stuff like this. And I talk to some store owners because I'm friends with lots of different store owners in the towns where we're at. Nobody seems to be taking anything serious. I mean, they're like, yeah, well, whatever. It'll pass in a week or two, or whatever. And I told them, I said, but look at the shipping that's stopping. You can't keep products. I mean, stop and think about it. I talked to a friend of mine who deals with meat. And they told me that literally they can't get any shipments of meat in. And when they do, there's actually people sitting there waiting to buy the whole thing. And they're having to ration meat from the butcher store because there's people that'll buy it all. Money's not the object. And so, I mean, they're selling half the sides of beef and, all this, I mean, like crazy. I mean, people's just buying it up. So, whether or not anything massive ever comes out of this, guys, it's happened. And LCE has happened. And y'all know for the last 4 years, I've tried my best to help everyone understand and get prepared in the event that we had an LCE happen. And we've talked about different scenarios with LCEs. They could be tornadoes, they could be hurricanes, we talked about physical issues, famines, plagues, whatever. We talked about all these could be war, the grid down, all these things. But guys, it's turned out to be a virus pandemic worldwide. And now, being this is being shot several days early, there's probably some things that will happen before this airs that I'm not even going to cover. But as of the day that I'm shooting this, we've closed our borders between Canada and Mexico now. And only essential things are allowed to cross the border. Non-essential trips are not being allowed. And I want y'all to notice how this is being ushered out to the people. If you'll notice, every day now for the last week or so, there's been a briefing around 11:45, between 10:45 and 12 o'clock, somewhere in that area, there's always a presidential briefing, a coronavirus briefing. Well, do you understand what they're doing? Now, they could have come out right at the first briefing and they could have said everything that they've said all week long, but they did not. They are dibbling it out slowly. Every day they tell you something a little different so that it doesn't overwhelm you all at once. Because you see, our society here is not capable of taking the full blunt of a blow all at once without panicking. I mean, look at the panic we're already having on people buying up stuff that probably will never even use half of it, and just because they heard something that they didn't know if it was true or not. So, I have received word there's lots of things coming our way. All I'm going to tell you is, we haven't seen the worst yet. If the things that I'm being told are true, then the worst is yet to come. So that's why here at Deep South Homestead for 4 years now, we have been harping on and teaching growing your own food. We haven't been like lots of YouTube channels out there, and a lot of them, I don't even know the names of some of these people. I mean, I just flip through channels lots of times and they're just talking heads. They don't really ever show you anything. They talk about what they're going to do, but they don't ever show you what they do. They may be standing in front of a raised bed, they may be standing in front of containers, and they may have a plant in their hand, and they may say, I'm going to put this in that, or a seed, I'm going to put it in that. They never actually show themselves planting it. They never actually show themselves the progression as it goes along, how it's growing, and how they actually preserve it or anything like this. They just, I call them talking heads. And those seem to be the ones that everybody's just jumping on, There's a few of them out there that are friends of mine that actually show planting from the beginning and all the way to the end of canning it. And they get them some good views, but they're not getting a lot of views. I mean, their channel's not growing very big because they're not entertaining. Well, hopefully, now that we're facing the things that we're facing in this country, some of the videos out there that people are making that are very good videos about how to actually grow food will actually go somewhere now. And people will realize that just talking heads are doing them no good. And I'm not talking about any one particular channel. It's just something that I've noticed on YouTube as I thumb through it. I see all these thumbnails, and a lot of them I'll just glance at and I'll surf through them. Never once see them plant anything or do anything. They just talk about what they're going to do. And again, information is good. Like Porch Time today, I'm not actually doing anything, but I have multiple videos out about what I am doing. I show myself doing it. So that's the desire of Deep South Homestead, is to teach and educate just for a situation like we're facing today. Now, how are we going to make it? That's the whole thing. The LCE or the SHTF has done happened. Okay, that's already happened. We've got that behind us now. Now, how are we going to make it? Well, I'm going to tell you a story. I was on a tractor one day in a field. I was plowing a field of mine to plant corn. And as I plowed this field, it was on a Saturday. I was at home by myself. My wife and kids were on the coast, buying groceries, doing what we used to do all the time. And this has been many years ago. And I was at home, like I said, plowing this field, running the discs through it, getting it pulverized, getting it ready to hook the planter up to plant my corn. And there was a crow. This crow stayed with me right in front of my tractor for like 20 minutes. And I kept thinking to myself, why? I've never seen a crow stay with me like this. This bird he's waiting for me to plant seeds. He's going to eat my seeds. And I made the comment, I said, if that crow is with me, when I get to the end of that long road down there and I turn around and come back, if that crow is still following my tractor, he stayed right in front of the front wheels on that tractor. He'd fly a few feet and land, fly a few feet and land. I said, if he's still there, I'm going in the house, I'm going to get my shotgun, I'm going to come back out, and if he follows me on that tractor, I'm going to shoot him. Because he's not going to eat my crop that I worked so hard for. Well, when I got to the end of the road, the crow was sitting right there. I actually walked past the crow, climbed over the fence, and headed to the house. Switched my tractor off, left it sitting in the field. I got to the house, I looked, the crow was still sitting there. I went in the house, my phone was ringing. I started not to answer it because back then you just didn't answer every phone call. I was like, well, I was thinking they'll call back if it's important. But I said, no, my wife was on the coast. I said, I might better answer it because there were no cell phones or anything then. I picked the phone up and it was the hospital. It was my family. They were calling me. They said, Danny, where are you at? I said, I'm at home. I'm plowing a field. Why? They said, you've got to get to the hospital in another city. Your brother's had an accident. A house trailer has fell across his back and crushed his back. You've got to get there. I said, well, my wife's on the coast, and back then I only had one car. I said, she's on the coast buying groceries. I said, I have to wait for her to come home. And I said, I can't go anywhere, you know. Well, when I hung up, I happened to think my wife worked for a company that had given them, back then it was an old-timey cell phone. It was like and I called her on that phone, and I told her, I said, you need to come home. We've got to go to this hospital in this city. I said, my brother had a house trailer fall across his back, and he's crushed. And so she immediately, it took her another 45 minutes to get home, and by then I was ready to go, and we unloaded the groceries and put them up, and we took off to this hospital. But when I got there, they were just getting ready for him to be airlifted from there over to the University of Alabama in another state because they couldn't do anything for him here. And I went through a briefing. I took the doctor in the room and I told him to give me a briefing. And he said, Danny, he's paralyzed. He's never going to walk again. And I said, can you be sure of that? He said, yes. He said, take a bag of spaghetti and grab it in the middle of your hand and crush it and let go of it. He said, and then try to find every piece of spaghetti that goes back where it's supposed to. He said, that's what's happened to the nerves in his back, his spinal cord. They're just almost, they're severed almost, you know. And I was like, okay. So I left where I was at. I drove almost 2 hours to the University of Alabama. And I stayed there with my family until about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And they still had not done anything because they were still doing tests and scans and all this kind of stuff, had him sedated pretty heavy. And I looked at my family and I told them, I said, look, I have to preach tomorrow morning. Is Easter. And I have to preach tomorrow for a church that has asked me to come because the pastor's not there. I have to go. I've got to have some rest before I do this. So I left. It took me till about 2 o'clock in the morning to get home. And I caught a little bit of what little I could rest. You know, I slept. I had to do sunrise services the next morning at 6 o'clock, between 6 and 6:30 in the morning. I got there. I'd done the sunrise service. I got ready to preach. I got up, and when I opened my Bible up, I could not find my notes. I sit there and I talked for about 4 or 5 minutes, thumbing through my Bible, looking for my notes, and they just weren't there. And I said, Lord, I'm going to claim that promise in Scripture where you said that you would teach me in the same hour what it is that you would have me to know and to say. Spirit, I'm leaning on you. I need you. I actually preached that service. I preached the message that I had studied for. I had several people come to know the Lord. I had one person surrender to the ministry. And as I was standing at the back of the church door that day, shaking people's hands as they come out the door, I told them from the pulpit, I said, I can't find my notes. I don't know how this is going to go today. But as I was shaking people's hands, they were going out the door. One lady looked at me and she said, well, what's that hanging out of your Bible right there? And I looked down, and in my Bible, I could see a piece of paper hanging out of it, and I opened my Bible up right there, and there was the notes. They were there the whole time. It's just that God did not want me to have those notes. He wanted me to depend on Him. Because you see, it's by faith that we do the things that we do. God gives us faith, and we have to exercise that faith before we actually see or get anything from God. And my whole point is this: how will we make it through COVID-19, they're calling it, or the Chinese virus, or coronavirus, whatever you want to call it? We'll make it through faith. Faith is how we're going to do this. I've always talked about prepping, and I've always talked about providing for yourself. And so many people, look, I get so many, oh, guys, if y'all only knew, and some of you are the ones who are sending this, is probably listening to me today. Oh, Danny, don't you believe in Matthew where it says that the birds of the air don't take any thought about their food? God feeds the sparrows, and look at the lily in the field and the beauty of it and how God provides for it. Don't you think God's just going to take care of us? Yes, I do know God will take care of us. I do know that. But God never promised that He would give us everything that we need if we just sit on our derrieres. God expects us to be adamantly busy about what we're supposed to be doing and providing for ourselves. It's in the event that we've done all that we can do and we can't do any more, and it's out of our control, that God steps in and He makes things happen for us. And that's where a lot of us are going to come to when this virus finally manifests itself. We're going to eventually come to the point, if we've prepared all we can prepare, and we get down to the end, and there's something that we don't have, then God's Word will kick in, and we will probably have the things that we need. My wife that passed away back in 2011 lost 2 kids in a car accident on the same morning. Or 3 kids, I'm sorry, she lost 3 kids in a car accident on the same morning. And she and I used to do PowerPoints for people. She was a speaker on how to deal with grief and how to deal with problems when they arose. She turned a bad situation into a good situation. And we traveled around and did this PowerPoint presentation, and she spoke about the goodness of God, even in the midst of tragedies. And it was by faith that we were able to do the things that we were able to do. And we got through it. Even as bad as it was losing her children, she still had not faced the greatest battle that she would ever face in her life, which was 6 years of cancer of her own self, before she actually went on to be with the Lord. And guys, as bad as all that is, as we face these uncharted territory in our country today, there's going to be a lot of us that face some of those same scenarios I just told you about. Some of us are going to lose children. Some of us are going to lose parents. Some of us are going to lose loved ones. There's lots of things, and it's only going to be through the grace of God and through faith that we actually cope with and get through this thing. And there's lots of things about this stuff that really, I don't want to use certain words, but it really ticks me off. One is, I don't know what I'm going to do with these kids. God, school's out. Could somebody please tell me what to do with these kids? They're driving me up the wall. Well, hello. You're the one that had them. You're the one that should be taking care of them all along, not somebody else. You shouldn't have to worry about finding something for them to do. I mean, that just burns me up when I hear stuff like that. You know, somebody's got to help me with these kids. No, you had them. You need to be responsible. There's just things that we're going to face as a nation that we've never faced before here in this country. They're talking about now social anxieties. People are being told they can't leave home. They're having meltdowns because they can't leave and go anywhere. They're like, oh my God, I'm going to lose my mind because I can't go see somebody. Come on, people. Get real. I guess everybody's going to find out that being a stay-at-home mom is not cookies and cream. Mothers used to stay home all the time and take care of their kids. I personally had a broken back. I had to raise my youngest daughter myself. My wife had to go to work. I had to stay home with a newborn baby and raise my youngest daughter. I understand what a woman goes through with a newborn child because I kept my child for the first year myself and did all the things that that a woman was supposed to do. I had to do it because one of us had to work. There wasn't all these giveaway programs, and there was some giveaway programs, but they wouldn't give it to us because we owned stuff. So, by faith, I made it through that. And with this pandemic that we've got going on, is there any guarantees that we won't get the virus? No, they're saying that actually it's a possibility, it's a real high probability that 1 in every 4 people will get it. If you have more than 4 people in your family, those possibilities are almost 100% that one of you, if not all of you, will eventually get it. And with that being the case, guys, are we really ready? And if we are not, how will we make it through it? Well, I'm here to tell you that a lot of it's just going to take faith. If you go back and you listen to these people that lived through the Depression that's still alive and they do talks about it, and you can find it online right now. You can go to every state, because I do it all the time. You can go to every state and you can pull up the Great Depression in that state and listen to older people that are being interviewed talk about what they went through during the Great Depression. You can find interviews of people that went through 1918, the flu pandemic. You can listen to them talk. You can listen to people who talked about the Roaring '20s and stuff like that. It's all online. You can listen to interviews with all that stuff, and you will see that people never thought it would happen to them. But the ones that they interviewed said, you know, it was our faith that got us through it, and the help of neighbors and stuff. Now, when I was a kid, my whole family got the Hong Kong flu. That's what my mama called it. I don't know if that was a real name for it or not, but we have what was called the Hong Kong flu, Mama said. The whole family had it at the same time. Now, my daddy run a business. He was a logger, and rather than shut his logging crew down, the crew would come to work in the morning and pick up the truck, and they would all go on and work that day. And they would bring it back that evening, and they would stand outside while my dad stood inside, and they would tell my dad what happened that day, what needed fixing, if there was a saw that needed fixing or something, a chainsaw or whatever, something needed welding. Then my dad would get out, as sick as he was, and he would fix the stuff so that the next day there would be a time period from the time he finished working on something until the next morning. It would sit out overnight, and if there was any bacteria or anything, or virus or anything, it probably didn't pass on because it had been exposed to the elements. And my dad kept his company going that way. And we did that for like a month or so. So we didn't die. We thought we was going to, but we didn't. But guys, the bottom line is we can talk about this stuff all day long, but the bottom line is this. Sometimes it takes more than tangible objects and sustenance to get you through something. Filling the belly with food is only part of a problem. There's always the mental anxiety that goes along with things that is unseen. Any of y'all who's ever faced any type of military skirmishes or anything like that will understand what I'm talking about. You have to be mentally prepared before you go into anything or do anything. Because you can get in the middle of something and just have a breakdown if you don't. Panic. You have to be trained to respond, not think. And I'm so fed up with the way things are done today. I well remember back when we first went into Iraq and to shut Saddam Hussein down in his power. I remember the change of the language then from the mainstream media and our government officials. I remember sitting there one night watching TV, and they had a breaking news report come on, and it showed the skies of Baghdad being lit up everywhere with fireworks. I mean, they were just firing weapons into the air. I mean, our planes were flying in. And the guy that was giving the briefing was the United States Defense Secretary. I think it was Donald Rumsfeld, if I'm not mistaken. And he talked about, he says, we are in the process of flying sorties into the theater, and we're dropping, and he told how many batteries, and I was sitting back, I'm like, what in the world is he talking about? It didn't take me long to figure out that they had changed the language because they didn't want war to sound as bad as it really is. A sortie was a plane mission. That was our fighter jets. They were flying missions. The theater was the area where they were bombing. The batteries were the bombs that they were actually dropping. I'm like, why didn't he just say we went into this place and flew our planes in there and we bombed the heck out of this place? Because they wanted to make war look glorious. And guys, it's no different today with COVID-19. They're doing the same thing all over again. Rather than them just come out and say, we have a pandemic on our hand, we have a flu that's running wild, we have, a viral infection that's going to do this. They're coating the words with sugar to make it sound like everything is not bad. We've got this under control. We've got a stimulus package now. You're going to get $1,000 if you make below a certain amount of money. You're not going to have to file taxes till July the 15th now. There'll be no penalties for it. You don't have to make your student loan payments now. There'll be no penalties on it. You'll be given a certain length of time that you don't have to worry about making your payments. It's going to be all right. Because for years and years and years, they've thrown that line out there with a hook, line, and sinker on it, and they've snagged us in the corner of the mouth, and we're financially in debt to everybody. And they know that by shutting this country down, if they don't do something, then you're going to lose whatever you have. You're not going to be able to feed your family. And you're going to freak out. So they're having to coat this thing as well as they can. So guys, let's just be honest with each other. Let's look at this thing for what it really is. It's an LCE. It's a life-changing event that has happened. And they keep talking about when it passes, when the wave lays down. When the curve is gone, guys, it's not going away. Please use your heads. They're setting us up for everything that they need. They just passed the Wartime Act this past week. They implemented that in the Korean War because they needed more artillery machine, needed more tanks and stuff. They made, Chrysler and them, they made them shut down making automobiles and start making tanks and stuff and Jeeps and military equipment. Now they're using them to make respirators and ventilators and all that kind of stuff. Guys, we're facing some of the worst things that we could possibly face right now. We're fighting an unknown enemy. It's a viral infection. You can't see it. You can't taste it. You can't feel it until it hits you. A lot of people are making fun about it. They're like, oh, this is the craziest thing in the world. Let me tell you something. I've got subscribers that have it. And they're sending me messages daily about their progress. And they're telling me exactly what they're going through. And the doctors are telling them that, they said, this is a mild case. And they're saying if this is mild, I don't know how anybody lives through a bad case. So, no one is immune. So don't think that just because you're a certain age, you're immune, because you're not. This, I do believe, has been planned. Because stop and think about lots of different things. A lot of your stores have come up with drive-through windows to pick up your medication and all this kind of stuff, and your food. Drive-through and pick up your food, all this kind of stuff. Guys, this has been orchestrated for many years. We're headed toward Agenda 2030. And I always tell the people this. It's like a snowball going down a hill. When it first starts off, it's got to roll really fast because it's small. Now that it's gotten large, it doesn't have to make very much of a rotation before it covers a lot of ground. That's where we're at. What we're facing today is this right here, and then I'm going to get off. I want you to understand this. I raised cattle almost my whole life. When you have cows, and this may be a crude illustration, I've used it before on another video, you have a huge pasture. Those cows is in a large pasture. Before you can handle those cows, you got to bring them out of that pasture and you got to put them in a corral. And even though you have them in a corral, you still can't handle them. So from the corral, you got to go down to a chute. You bring them out of it, you keep bringing them down. And when you get them in the chute, you still don't have them where you can handle them, but at least you got them where they're confined. And from a chute, you run them on up in the head squeezer. And when you get them in the head squeezer, whap, that thing comes around their neck, they're yours, and you can do whatever you want with them. They can't do anything. Guys, that's what they're doing with us. They're bringing us down, little by little. They're focusing, and finally they're going to funnel us into a particular place to where we don't have a choice on some things. And then when the squeezer comes down and we're locked, we belong to them. I want you to think about that, because that's where we're headed. Right now, we've been brought from the pasture. We're in the corral. They're getting ready to head us down that long chute, getting us ready for the head squeezer. So think about that, guys, as you watch things unfold. This is, today is the 20th that I'm actually shooting this. I expect by the 22nd or 23rd, when this actually comes out, we will have heard more from the president and from the government about what their other plans are. I think I already know what they are because people are sending me messages. I'm not going to jump out ahead and say anything because I don't want to create anxiety any more in people than what's probably going to already be created. I want us to just pray that our country can find its way again. And guys, this video is meant for encouragement, not discouragement. Start growing what you can grow. I have books on our Etsy store that I've wrote about growing sweet potatoes. I have books I've wrote about growing English peas. Vegetables like that, people are buying them left and right because they know they need all the information they can get in something that they can hold in their hand. There's pictures, there's recipes in the back, there's all the information you need there about being able to grow some of the most important foods that there is. Sweet potatoes is one of the most superfoods that there is. This book is valuable information if you need it and you want it. And you've got room to actually grow some. You can grow them in containers. They can be grown. I've grown them in containers. I've grown them in the ground. I've grown them under plastic. I've experimented in all ways growing in things. And it can be done all ways. And it's a superfood that is very beneficial for the body. It will get you through hard times. I also have a Patreon videos about what foods are the best ones for homesteaders to grow to get us through hard situations. I'll talk about those different foods, and so if you want to know about that, you can go over to Patreon and you can check out all the different videos over there about what can be grown on a homestead and what is sustaining, what will last for a year without having to be canned. All this stuff is over on Patreon, guys. So guys, thank you so much for sitting here with Porch Time. I know it's been long today, but the Lord laid this on my heart. I felt like I needed to put it out there. I didn't want to wait about shooting it because a man never knows what the future may hold. And I wanted this while God gave it to me to give it to you. So thank you guys from Deep South Homestead.